Welcome to the journey. I'm Nathan, and this is the Modern Bushido Project.
All right, so a very requested video is not only my favorite hiking shoes, but kind of the lineage of how I got there. It started off in 2007. I was in Iraq, in Baghdad, and I wanted the lightest, most breathable shoe I could possibly find. And in 2007, there was a lot of minimalist options. There wasn't a lot of lightweight options, so it was just kind of something you just kind of found. So what I found was a pair of Merrell water shoes is basically what they were, and they had a nice tread on the bottom. I think they were designed for some type of like river type hiking, lightweight. So anyways, I got those shipped to Baghdad, and those ended up being some shoes that I lasted for a very long time. I'll toss up some pictures, edit those in. I think from 2015-ish time frame is basically when I retired them. So they got quite a few years, but they were pretty good. So then after that, I started looking at different options of shoes. Wasn't really looking into minimalist stuff quite yet. That was something that kind of came later down the line. So what I found was these Merrells that had a nice little guard here, but they're kind of thick, kind of heavy. So I moved into these ones, the Aerosport Aqua or something. I don't remember exactly what they're called. These are hands down the best shoes I've ever had as far as traction. I don't know what it is about this Vibra Mega Grip on here and the pattern that they have, but pretty much everything except for mud and ice, these things will stick to like a billy goat. I mean, they just do not move. When you're hiking, you can play on a little tiny ball, and these things are amazing for traction. Also, the breathability was really good with the mesh. So these became my hiking shoe for a very long time. Then I started looking at more natural foot function and trying to get a little bit more slim. So I tried the Merrell trail. I don't remember exactly which is which, but one of these is a trail glove and one is a vapor glove. I think this is a trail glove and I think this is the vapor glove. Quite a few miles, but you can see the bottom. They're not terribly tractionable, I guess you could say. So they weren't much better than some just kind of regular shoes. So what I do find is that these will probably match up to the Xero Mesa Trail, which I'll talk to you here in a little bit. And these match up to the Speed Glove, which I'll talk to here in a little bit. So following that line, I then came into Ultra. I did briefly try the Lone Peaks. I believe they were either the 3 or the 4 at the time. Wasn't a huge fan of the stack height. For me, they just felt unstable. I was on the rock and I was kind of all over the place. So I wasn't a huge fan of them. So I tried the Ultra Superior, which I do like because I was able to add a gaiter to it, which was kind of cool, just because they got the Velcro in the back there. But again, a little bit too much stack height for me and for what I wanted. So then I started playing with Xeros, and I think my first Xero shoe was a Prio. For me personally, I don't find the Prio is a very good hiking shoe. It's very flat. There's almost no traction on it. So me personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Prio for anything other than casual and court sports. They do really well with those two things, not so much at anything that requires traction. So then I got the Mesa Trail. I originally got them in tan, and I took it out to Yosemite, which previously I had done in these shoes. And in these shoes, I never had any issues with traction whatsoever. With the Mesa Trail, so the Mesa Trail prior to going to Yosemite was hands down my favorite all-around shoe, just for everything. I could wear it all over the place, super light, super breathable, really liked it. What I found out in Yosemite is that is not, again, traction is a problem. It is not good for anything that requires very much traction. Even though they got the treads on here, there's just nothing that compares to this shoe right here as far as traction goes. So even though it's a little bit thicker, man, if you could slim that down and turn it into a shoe like this, that would be the ultimate hiking shoe. So there's a shortcut to the answer. That would be the ultimate hiking shoe. So what I found is that I was sliding on the granite so bad that it was starting to beat up my ankles a little bit. Didn't mind the bottom as far as like feeling the rocks, sharp edges, stuff like that, not a problem. The problem is the traction when I would step on something that typically I would be very, very secure, and knowing that I was gonna get a good strong foothold, this would just slip. And so I was banging my ankle bones into rocks and things like that. Not too much fun. So I got home, I was so mad that I chucked out the tan ones and I just didn't really deal with those for a while. I eventually got another pair. I think for groomed trails and trails that are that are not super slippery. They don't have dust on top of the rocks. They don't have ice. They don't have any of that stuff. You could probably get away with the Mesa Trail, and I do for most of my Colorado hikes. They're not too bad. But just be aware that this traction is not like any of the Vibram Mega Grip type shoes. So what I do have is the daylight hiker, the Xero daylight hiker. So what I do like about a mid-height is it does protect your ankles from those rocks that tend to snap up, keeps a little of the dirt out. It's not quite as breathable as the Mesa Trail, but it is a little bit, it is pretty light as far as breathability. It's a light shoe. It's a little bit thicker on the bottom, so it does protect your foot a little bit better. So in Yosemite, I actually switched to these. Again, still an issue with slippage, but I was able to handle a little bit more because this was protecting my ankle bone. Another option is the Aerosport X. Basically the same bottom as the Mesa Trail. This is made more for water, so when I go to beach type places, or if there's going to be a lot of water, river crossings, I'll actually bring these instead. Basically the same thing as the Mesa Trail. I find these are not as comfortable barefoot as probably the Mesa Trail or the HFS like I'm wearing. And I did swap out the lock laces for, I think it's called Extenex is the name of these laces. Personally, I just find them a little bit better because you can get a tire package without a floppy little slider disc going all over the place. Honestly, I did pick up the TerraFlex. And so I think this is kind of a mesh between these two, is it's got a little bit more protection on the bottom. I do find that these two, because they're just slightly a little bit stiffer, you still get full foot function. They actually do get a little bit better traction, not a ton, but you do get a little bit. So when it becomes to fall and spring and winter, these would probably be my preferred shoe because they are a little bit warmer than the Mesa Trail. Mesa Trail is definitely more breathable. So I typically don't wear these in the summer, but the rest of the year when it is a little bit cooler, you can wear these, and I find they're a better hiking shoe than the Mesa Trail. And then the winter, you can get these winter boots. For me, I find they're a little bit loose around the ankle, but that's kind of what they are. They're not bad. Again, same thing across all the Xeros. They do have traction issues, so just be aware of that. If you step on ice, it's not going to be very good. Merrell did have a series for a while where they had like some. You could buy some with cleats in it. You could buy some that had like a rubber that would react to the ice, and I found those actually worked pretty well for me. A lot of people didn't, but for me they worked pretty well. So if Xero could come out with some better traction, they would hands down have the market completely. So what's my favorite shoe? You know, honestly, if you could, like I said, if you could take the sole of this and toss it on this Mesa Trail, that would hands down be the best, especially summer, hiking shoe you could ever find. So it's kind of up to you. A little bit thicker sole. I actually can't wear these now because I've gotten so used to minimalist footwear that there's a little arch in there, and that is just enough to throw me off. And unfortunately, the sole, probably can't really see it, isn't removable, so you can't take it out. So I may play with cutting it out and seeing if I can get that a little bit lower, get that arch out of there, because my feet end up hurting actually after wearing those, now that I've worn flatter footwear for such a long time. So for me, I would say summer, still go with the Mesa Trail, just be aware of the traction. The rest of the season, probably go with the TerraFlex. And if you want something that's going to protect your ankles a little bit better, not from a stability standpoint, but from rocks beating it up. So if I go to rockier, granite type places, I do prefer the daylight hiker. So I do wear those quite often. And then the winter, obviously, you just go with winter, something a little bit more insulated. So those are my choices. Oh, I was going to talk about these two. So this I do compare to pretty close to, probably not the Mesa Trail, but the HFS. HFS I actually find is the best all-around shoe for everything. This is the most comfortable, it's breathable, it's basically a Mesa Trail just with a different bottom. I love it. It is hands down the most comfortable shoe. And then you have the Vapor Glove actually matches up very well to the Speed Force that Xero has. And the Speed Force, I think the Speed Force and the Vapor Glove, you could take them on very groomed trails and it probably wouldn't be an issue. You may start having issues where you have more rocky, ruddy, kind of more difficult terrain. You're gonna have a little bit of issues. Which one's gonna have better traction? Honestly, these two Merrells don't have the same traction, even though they're Vibram. They don't have the traction that this one does. This one just sticks to everything. Unless you're in mud or some really slippery ice, this shoe is hands down the best on traction. They don't make them anymore, so you're not gonna find it. So it's really not a big deal. But yeah, so For me, probably Mesa Trail, a little bit of Terraflex, a little bit of Daylight Hiker, and that's probably my options for most of the season. So those are my favorites. What are yours? Let me know, and feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will talk to you later.